terms of like what the Asian Women's Cup is, or what it is. It serves as the World Cup qualifiers for the 2023 Women's World Cup, which is going to be taking place in Australia and New Zealand. It's going to be hosted in India, in 3 stadiums across the country. It's going to be starting this week on Thursday, January 20th, and the qualifiers will end on February 6th. It's the 20th edition of the Cup in the Asian Football Confederation, and it is going to be in India for the second time, as they were hosts once before in 1979. And it's the first time the final tournament was expanded from 8 to 12 teams, which is also real nice. Always nice to see more national teams involved in this stuff. 5 nations are going to qualify for the World Cup through these knockout stages, and 2 additional teams from this tournament will advance to interconfederation playoffs. So I'm pretty hyped about this. I love the expanded team format for sure. I think we talked about it a little bit. We said we're gonna maybe break this down through groups instead of maybe just like listen off team after team after team. So 3 groups for this tournament. It's going to be a group A, a group B, and a group C. Obviously, with India as hosts, they're right in the thick of it. The other 8 teams were decided by qualification matches last year during September and October. But let's jump into group A really quickly. We've got India, the host, China, Iran, and Chinese Taipei rounding out the 4 groups for Group A. And I'm going to put myself on blast, okay? Because again, we were chatting a little bit off mic, and Lisa presented me with a question, which I will present back to the both of you later on in this episode. If I had maybe a team that I was like pulling for in this competition, and I went with my heart, and my heart said, I think I really want to see the host do like a special thing. And I'm going to be keeping my eye on India in this one a little bit. They're the host. They're ranked 11th in the AFC, 55th overall in FIFA. But I mean, I feel like leading up to this tournament, we had heard about them and seen a little bit of them in action. Probably one of the most recent windows when they went up against Brazil, right? And in Formiga's farewell sort of matches. So I'm hoping that they maybe, I don't know, that they maybe do the thing, that they maybe like surprise a few people. But in terms of whether it's India or some of the other teams, like Steph, who are you maybe keeping an eye on in this group?
I mean, I think when it comes to this confederation, any confederation on the women's side, you do tend to get the countries that have had more time and more resources to develop versus the countries that are newer and younger and still, putting things together. I agree with you. I really want to see India do well. I think it's always good when the host country does well at a tournament because the knock-on effect for their program is invaluable, right? You're at home, you're in front of home crowds, and it's kind of proof of concept of, hey, we can deliver a product if only you invest a little bit of time and energy and money into us. I have, personal favorites. I'm going to be rooting for the homeland, South Korea,
Right.
but I'm very interested to see what Japan does because they're in a big transition period. Obviously, Australia. Very interested in seeing what Thailand and Philippines do as well, because I think these are 2 Southeast Asian teams that have been kind of putting those pieces together for a while. And they kind of have a vision of what they want to do as opposed to being a young team that's just like, let's just get in there, And
Yeah.
so with a little more organization, a few more resources, some more results, I think this is going to be a really valuable tournament for those 2.
I agree with India being someone that you need to really keep an eye on as host country of this, because playing at home, yes, it's across their country in 3 different stadiums. But as you mentioned, Steph, if they can generate a lot of buzz for them in their home country, that could really benefit them. When I also look at Group A, you have to kind of keep an eye on China because ranked 19 in the FIFA rankings, they've had a lot of success in this Asian Women's Cup. They've won the title 8 times totally. And most recently in 2018, they finished 3rd. So it's tough, especially in Group A that they have going up against India and Iran, first time making it into the Women's Cup. But this is a group that has some competition. But looking at it, though, I think India is going to give a lot of trouble to the other teams in this group and hopefully sneak out, because I think that would do a lot for the country and the nation and the women's team in general. But you can't sleep on China in this sense, because they've been in this position many times before and they've won it. They know how to win. They have the team now that could potentially do that. So I have to keep an eye on them when we're looking at just Group A. I'm not getting into my favorite yet, Sandra. I'll wait for that big question.
Don't worry. I'm not gonna let it go. I'm gonna ask it in the other two groups too. In terms of like, pointing out maybe the heavy hitter, right, in this group, and then maybe obvious pointing out the obvious, the hosts. Would we just assume that makes Chinese Taipei or Iran like the underdogs of this group, right? We're talking. I mean, when we're looking at Iran, it's like it's going to be their first ever appearance in this Asian Women's Cup. They're the debutantes, right? And for the first time, I think since 2014, there was a debutante when it was Jordan back in 2014. And then for the Chinese Taipei, in terms of their journey here, Steph, maybe not a ton of opposition that stands out the most in terms of these two teams. Do you think either of them maybe have a shot to make it out of the group?
Chinese Taipei would be my bet. Iran, when you look at the qualification, Chinese Taipei, they had, confident wins, but no blowouts, which you don't want blowouts, right? But those can be a signal that tell you like who's organized and who's not, who's experienced, who's not. Iran, in the end, they struggled against Jordan. They had to go to penalties in order to advance out of that game. And so when you look at that, the history of their programs and, just how much time that they've been afforded to train and play, Chinese Taipei, I think, has the edge.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I know that the games are going to be taking place across like from January 20th all the way through 6th. But in terms of the group matches for this one, I believe they're taking place on the 20th. That is going to be kicking things off, and then the 23rd, and then the 26th. So if people are looking for action specifically out of Group A across Paramount Plus, you're going to be looking for those specific days if you want to see any of these particular teams participating out of Group A.